Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sylvia Ramos, and I work alongside the Education Initiatives team at the United Way of Greater Chattanooga as the Senior Director for that department. And as many of you know, we have long invested in supporting our out-of-school time partners. And one of the ways that we've done that is by helping to facilitate professional development workshops like this that allow providers and partners to really enhance their skills so that we can continue to always better support our children and families in Hamilton County. So today we have the pleasure of welcoming our partners from Hamilton County Schools, and in the interest of getting everyone's name right, not missing anyone, and titles correctly, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the team and allow them to introduce themselves. But if you have questions, please pop them into the chat, or we can address them after the team is finished sharing their content. But thank you again. Thank you to the team, and thank you to all of you that are joining us today.
I think what we'll do, I'll just kind of go around the room and call on everyone. They can introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. I'll start sharing my screen. So we'll start with Dr. Stewart.
Good morning to you. My name is Yvette Stewart. I'm the Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning here in Hamilton County Schools. I have a wonderful team here with me that's going to present, so I'll hand it to them.
Okay, and then Jamie Parris.
I'm Jamie Parris. I'm the High School Teaching and Learning Director, so I'm Dr. Stewart's high school counterpart.
Joey.
Hello, I'm Joey Bird, and I am the District Lead for RTI K-12.
Jan.
I'm Jan Nelms. I'm the high school math content lead for the district.
Sheila.
Hey, good afternoon. So good to be here. I'm Sheila Martin, and I'm the 3-5 math content lead for the district.
Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Lowe. I am the K-2 math content lead for the district.
Thank you. And I think that's our team here today. I'm Chrissy Easterly, the Middle School Director of Teaching and Learning. Sharonda Gardner is a middle school lead, and I don't think she's going to be able to join us. She's been ill, so we'll kind of fill in for her as we go along today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see it. Hang on. It's always hard to see there's somebody's entering there. Oh, hang on. Hitting the wrong button there. Uh-oh, we got some people entering here. Are you guys able to enter those, or do I need to do that as I'm sharing? Can the co-host do that?
Yeah, I'll manage that.
Okay. Let's see. I don't want to do that. Okay. Well, I'm trying to find my buttons here. Okay, first, thank you all for joining us and inviting us today. We're very happy to share our work and talk about math and what that looks like inside our district. Just a couple of slides to begin. We always use this slide to kind of launch our work, and it centers around being the best school district in Tennessee. We have some Focus 5 performance targets, and we shared these at the literacy presentation as well. And really what the district has done is work to think about what are the 5 really holistic targets that we focus our work on K-12. A lot of these will appear to be measured in high school, but there's a lot of work that goes on in that K-12 continuum to get us to that point. So I'll just kind of read through these very quickly. At least half of all 3rd graders will be on track or mastery as measured by Tennessee and Ready English Language Arts Assessment. And this kind of associates with what we're talking about today, doubling the % of students on track in Algebra 1 across all grades. 75% of graduates will complete at least one advanced course or industry certification exam, pushing everyone to be at a 21 for the class of 2023 as the average composite for ACT. And then that 90% of our students who entered high school in the 2019 cohort will graduate by the summer of 2023. So that's kind of the work collectively at a K-12 focus. So we really think about how we're and continue to talk about how we build that work across K-12. I'm going to jump into, Joey's going to take the next couple of slides. Joey is our RTI lead, as she's mentioned earlier. And I know that she worked a lot with community partners over the summer to establish some work around iReady and students logging in and doing some of that work at some of our centers. So she's going to just remind us a little bit about iReady and how we use that, and we'll fold that into our K-12 work as well.
Hello, everyone. So iReady is an adaptive learning program that we use in our district for math and reading. It was purchased this year for every student in Hamilton County, which was really exciting. And what we do is we have our students run through a screener. It's mandatory twice a year. And the middle time, we use it for our students who have been struggling or potentially need extra support. And by adaptive learning, what that means is our students take a diagnostic, or what we call the universal screener, in both math and reading. And it identifies for us where students are on their instructional level. So you might have a student who is in the 4th grade, but their instructional level in math might be 1st or 2nd grade. So what this platform does is it generates for us an individual path of learning for each of our students that they're able to work on. This is what your students work on in the centers, and that a lot of you were utilizing during the REACH program this summer. So when students come in, when they log in, all of those assignments and lessons are already set up for them at each of their individual levels. And they're able, and they're comfortable with it, or they should be, and they're able to work through those programs. There are also games in there, which I'm sure you've seen, but it's a wonderful program that we've utilized district-wide. It is also aligned with the Tennessee state standards. So our classroom teachers also use it as a support or general instruction. So sometimes when your kids log in, they'll have options of lessons to choose. They might have homework that's been assigned by their teacher, and that could be a lesson that's connected to what they're doing in class, or they could just be doing their learning path that's been created to support any gaps they might have in instruction. And so when students log in, we use in our district what's called Class Link. It is a single sign-on solution which houses all of the apps and platforms we use as a district. That makes it really easy for teachers or for anyone else that's working with our students, as well as the teachers and students, because they're not constantly trying to find or go to different places to locate everything. All of the apps they need are there. So when a student logs in, you need to make sure that they are using their Google account. Everyone is assigned their HCDE email. If students ever are struggling to get into their account, it's typically because they're not signed on to their personal Google account on that device itself. Once they log in, they can literally click iReady or any other app they might be using in the district, and it'll take them right to their personal account. So this is what it looks like. If students have already logged onto their Google account on the device, they literally just need to click the sign in with Google and it'll direct them right in. I know this summer, a lot of people had requested from me different lists of email accounts and passwords because students would miraculously forget those or wouldn't know. And I was happy to help them out with all of that login information and help as well. And then with iReady as well. So if I can ever support you with any of that, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. And I think, so here are some quick tips. As I said, make sure they're logged into their Google account on the computer. So when they get into Google, that's just that circle on the top right corner. just make sure it's logged into their email account. You will go to class link. If it's not on the device they're using, you can access that through myapps.classlink.com. And then they actually can just go right into their Google account. Everything they use should be right on their dashboard. Our teachers have really embraced this and done an amazing job of making sure everything the kids need are right on there. If they're not, there's the ability to search in there, so they can go through there and search for whatever app they might need. So if they ever say, well, I don't know where my homework is, or I don't know if it's on Canvas, or if it's Class Dojo, what have you, all of those things for you are on ClassLink, so they don't need to be lost. Everything is right there for you. Did anyone have any questions about ClassLink? No. Well, if you ever need support with it, or with iReady, I'm more than happy to help. So just let me know. And then see, I think that was my last slide.
It is.
All right, well, thank you.
Hello, everyone. So again, we just passed the afternoon threshold, right? So good afternoon. And again, I'm Jamie Parris. I work with the high school support, the high school teachers. So a few things that we brainstormed that you could help students, particularly in math, is first off, provide a space and time for students to do the math. So oftentimes there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of things. If you can just create that space for them to be able to engage in that. And we believe very firmly in Hamilton County Schools of allowing private think time. So allowing students to engage in the work first, just give them that moment to think about the problem, do the problem for themselves, and then offer your help. Ensure students have access to math resources, if they graphing calculators, if you know other things that they may find. Sometimes just a piece of graph paper even helps have it handy. Ask what they're currently working on in math class. Sometimes them articulating what they're doing is also helping them think mathematically. We encourage you to model problem solving and sense making. So work a problem in front of the students and talk about how you're thinking about it, right? So this is what I did. This is how I think about the problem. This is what I found valuable. This is what I was looking at. Sometimes uncovering your own thinking actually helps them quite a bit, actually. Have students check their work. It's amazing how many students do a problem and go to the next problem without ever thinking twice about it, right? So just creating that pause, that moment of like, go back and check your work on that. And it's important they do that. Don't just say that when you see they've done it wrong, right? So we want them checking their work right or wrong to verify their answers. And then asking reflective questions. So is your answer reasonable? Does that work every time? Have you seen this before? So just, you may see a situation, I've used it with my own children at home. They may have a problem if you have 8 pencils and someone gives you 4 more pencils, you now have 48 pencils, right? So just asking them, does that make sense, right? Is that reasonable? Just having them think about it and revoice it for themselves makes a difference. And have you seen something like this before? Equations, students have been finding unknown answers for a long time. It just may have been a line or a box before it was an X, right? So it's been happening much sooner. Distributive property, they were decomposing numbers in elementary, right? So just making connections to what was happening prior. Chris, you can go to the next slide. Perhaps the biggest thing you can do as a provider is to not reinforce unproductive stereotypes, right? So anyone who's around me for any length of time at all, I will not allow you to say you're not a math person, right? So it is, we have to instill confidence in our students. This idea that girls are not as good at math as boys, and the extra dots there or extra bullets there, because there's so many other stereotypes that can happen, especially around math, right? So we just got to be really careful the language we use, that we are not unintentionally creating this, I was not good at math, so you come by it naturally, or, we got to be really, really careful about making sure that we're not increasing those stereotypes and those views of a non-math person by a student. So in Hamilton County Schools, we believe that we're here to develop mathematically literate students who reason, communicate, and perhaps just as important, they value mathematics. They see that it's relevant, right? It's something that is not just a course I've got to take in high school, or a class I've got to get through in middle school or elementary, but it's something that actually brings value to my life and to my future. So we encourage you to also think about kind of going back to the ways to help. So Polya had a 4-step process, and really we think hard about this in Hamilton County in terms of, you've probably experienced this before. You give a student a word problem, and before you know it, they pulled out the numbers and they just start randomly doing, oh, that's addition, subtraction. I mean, they just start, you know, must be an addition problem somewhere in there, right? So I'm going to just start adding numbers together. So we actually want you to think hard about helping them understand the problem. And oftentimes we find it's even easier to pull the numbers out, right? So just talk to us about what the problem's asking you. So help you understand the problem itself. And then think about, now I can start thinking about what operations I may need to do, or how I might, you know, make my plan around it, then enact the plan, carry out the plan. And perhaps the one that gets skipped the most is to look back and make sure your answer actually addressed the question and check your answer, right? So we ask this cycle. So you can really help a student to really, you want to help them a lot. It's help them establish doing this problem solving method. Lots of strategies we encourage, guessing and checking. Just last night with my own daughter, I used looking for a pattern. I had her go back and look at, you know, what you've done just 2 problems earlier and think about, you know, how this applies to this one. Could be making a drawing, an equation, a table. If you have manipulatives there, working backwards. So these are, I've also found solving a simpler problem matters, right? So if they're struggling with the current numbers they're dealing with, then let's back up a little bit on the numbers and then move forward from after we've had a chance to solidify the operations and thoughts. So rigor in math has been defined through the research as conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and application. So those 3 are not, by the way, saying that one's more important than the other. Those need to occur all within the math learning process. So conceptual understanding is critical to the work, but so is fluency, right? So it is, and they actually work in tandem with each other. And it really doesn't help us a whole lot if we can know a bunch of facts but can't apply them to anything. So all 3 of these things have to work in tandem. So as you're working with your students in your sites or wherever it may be, you're thinking about these 3 things. So how am I keeping this in the forefront of the work? And I'm going to turn it over to my elementary counterparts to have a little fun now. We get to have fun.
Do some math. So we are lovers of math. So anytime we get together, or anytime you guys get together with us, you will engage in some math. So we're going to take about 30 seconds, and I want you guys to solve this problem mentally. So you have 30 seconds, that's your private think time, to think about this problem mentally.
Yes, put your pencils down.
Now, if you thought of one way to solve it, and you know we still have some time here, 30 seconds, we're not there yet, try to think of a different way to solve it mentally. Okay, Chrissy. All right, how many of you thought about solving the problem this way? Just a quick thumbs up, or in the chat, me. Yeah, this is compensation. So you thought about making a friendly number to create an easier, friendlier problem. So this is one way that students may think about solving this problem. How many of you thought about solving it this way? The second way, the 35 minus 20 equals 15. So 34 minus 19 equals 15. Thumbs up. Yes in the chat, me. If you thought about solving it this way, this is keeping a constant difference. And what that means is that both numbers were changed by the same amount. So looking at this particular problem, adding 1 to 34 and to 19 to make the problem 34 minus 20, that would get you 15. And then if we know that we did that to both sides, then we have the same difference. The difference is still 15. How many of you thought about solving it the last way, the 19 plus 15 equals 34? Me too, thumbs up. Anyone think about adding up to subtract? So using addition to solve subtraction is one way students may think about solving this problem as well. That means that they just simply add it up from the subtrahend, which is the number being subtracted, to the minuend, the whole. So that's another way that students may think about solving this problem. So these are just a few ways students could think about solving this problem. And we all know that subtraction does involve removing an amount or taking away, but it also includes finding the difference between two numbers, comparing, and looking at the part to whole relationship. So our goal is to help our students develop a toolbox of efficient strategies by increasing their number sense and fluency. So Sheila's going to talk to you more about what that might look like.
Yeah, so one thing we really work on hard in elementary school is this idea of fluency. So I want you to take about 5 seconds and just think about, what does fluency mean to you? Thanks, Chrissy. So we probably have a lot of ideas of what that means in life and in our background of experience, but what the mathematical definition of fluency is that we want students to be able to solve problems accurately, with accuracy, flexibility, and efficiency. And the activity that Michelle led you through is something we really want to do with students, because there's more than one way to think about that problem. I know a lot of you wanted to go directly to cross out and rename, but there was a lot more efficient strategies to doing that. And some of you guys found that in the process. So we don't want to just be stuck in one way of doing anything, but we want kids to really think about flexibility of numbers, being accurate and efficient. We really want this idea of number sense to come out with students. And I have just a little bit of an example of that from my childhood. We, back in the day, of course, drilled our multiplication tables, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that's something I lived with. I carried my cards around with me because I had a really hard time mastering my multiplication tables in 4th grade math. I know that's really hard to believe from a math content lead, but here I am today, somewhat successful at math. But I had a really hard time learning 8 times 4. I just couldn't get that. But what I would do when that fact came up is I would think, oh, 8 plus 8 is 16, and 16 and 16 is 32. So 8 times 4 is 32. So I was using number sense even back then. There wasn't really a name for it that I was aware of in 4th grade, but I was making sense of those numbers flexibly and efficiently for me until I got to master that multiplication skill. So that's what we really want kids to think about when we're thinking about this idea of number sense. And fluency is much more than just memorizing facts. It's not a bad thing for students to memorize facts, but it's not where we really want them to start. We really want them to make connections between numbers and operations and apply them to other problems. So the ways that we could ask you guys to help support our elementary students, if you get to engage with them, is first of all, we think about if students are struggling, we really want to take them back to a concrete representation. And that's where we use our manipulatives in elementary school and high school. Some things you can use for manipulatives if you don't have a kit for students where you are. You can use beans or macaroni or Skittles or things like that. So if students are struggling with these models or the abstract algorithms, you might want to take them back to this concrete representation, and then draw a picture of what they're doing. That's the representational. And then they move into this idea, this abstract thinking, which is where we kind of all started with math when we were in school. We never really laid that foundation of connections between these 3 types of this continuum. So think about those manipulatives when you're working with students at all levels. Also, you can play games with kids. There's a lot of games that you can play with to build this fluency or this number sense. There's card games, like if you think about war, that's comparing numbers with students. You can do multiplication and addition with card games. Dice games, you can play with them. You can even practice counting. In our lower grades, we think about counting by 5s or 10s or 100s, or counting starting at 23 by 10s and things like that. So you can play games with them. Also, there's some computer programs that are out there that we recommend. SumDog's one of them. These are free that students can log into and access. Toy Theater is another one. Splash Learn's a really good one for students to practice fluency. And then Prodigy is a really good interactive game for students to use to practice all types of mathematical concepts. And then something else we really want to talk to with kids is this idea of real world situations that use math. Estimation is something that we use every day as adults, just about. But it's not something it's really hard to teach to kids, but that's something we want to talk to them about. So here are just some other ways to think about real world math with students if you get an opportunity to engage with them. Money, you can always think about counting money and giving change. Measurement, that's another way to think about ideas with students. Time, telling time. We don't have a lot of analog clocks in our world anymore, but really teaching students how to tell time and elapsed time and AM and PM and those concepts. Also, place value is a really soft spot for our students. Place value with decimals, place value with whole numbers. And then cooking, that's a great way to think about fractions with students and things like that. So there's some things that you can do with students to really help them build their number sense and fluency. And then the last thing we want to share is our resources in elementary school. Our core curriculum is the Ready Math curriculum where iReady's from. So they'll have access to this on that class links. We also have some Hamilton County Schools created resources that they use. And then our district approved resources is the iReady that Joey talked about earlier. So just want to encourage you to dig in and engage with students at all levels in this way to just really help build their love for math. Thank you so much.
So we just wanted to also echo that this idea of fluency isn't an elementary idea, and it's a K-12 idea. So you may shift from just mostly numbers, and now we're talking about proportional reasoning or equations or functions or whatever it may be. But fluency is still flexibility, efficiency, and accuracy, right? So we still want students approaching from those three standpoints. So we want them to be able to solve a problem potentially an efficient but flexible way, right? So, and also the concrete, representational, abstract also holds true. So I just want to make sure, sometimes we think when we get to high school, students don't need those representations or those concrete manipulatives, or they don't need a graph sitting in front of them to figure it out. They can just go straight to abstract. It holds true in high school as well. So Sharonda Gardner is the middle school content lead, and she is not feeling well today. So I'm going to go through a little bit of this just so you can kind of see what's coming up. So if you notice, sixth grade has lots of work around ratio equations, simple equations, expressions. It's a big theme on ratios, moving out of percents and out of fractions into these more ratio perspectives. Seventh grade takes that and starts to think more proportionally, right? So think about, how do I solve problems using proportional reasoning? Gets into more complex equations and starts some inequalities. And then eighth grade moves into some pretty complex equations, functions, systems. Actually, eighth grade is probably what most of us remember as Algebra 1. So it is, a lot of you will see when you look at an eighth grade textbook or you look at eighth grade work that the students are doing right now, you'll recognize a lot of us did that in Algebra 1 when we were in school. So here are some upcoming units, and we'll just kind of pause and let it stay there just a little bit so you can kind of see what's coming up in the next quarter. These are ideas that you can start to think about. If you notice, they all go into those big ideas that we talked about. But I'm going to just be quiet just for a second. Christy, if you can stay there just for a second, let everybody see it. I believe it's being recorded, so you can also go back and look at this as well.
Yeah, we will share this with Sylvia so that she can push it out to you guys as well, so you have it handy. And just to kind of follow up on the middle school work, we do have sections of middle school algebra throughout the district as well. So there may be some students that you work with that are actually in Algebra 1 at the middle school. That does happen across the district. So just a heads up around that. Wanted to just make sure too that everyone was kind of familiar, just as elementary did, shared their core curriculum. We also use Ready Math, which is Curriculum Associates, and the middle school algebra is Springboard. which is also what the high school uses. So you'll see some overlaps. Eureka is a supporting text that we use inside our curriculum guide, where we have pulled out some struggling standards across the board, where we feel like teachers may need some additional support resources, and pulled those into our curriculum guides as an additional piece. So students may reference that as well. Some of the other approved resources, Joey spoke to iExcel. We really want to focus on that as a K-8 focus across the board as students are working independently at centers and on computers. We try to direct them to iExcel, or excuse me, iReady. And then iExcel is really just middle school right now, and it's moving up to high school at the moment. So I think there was some training for teachers in January where they are piloting that at the high school. So you may see iExcel also used at the high school. Khan Academy is another one that we're using that you may be familiar with already. It's been around for a while. There's instructional videos in practice, and we've actually launched a few pilots at our middle school where they're receiving some coaching around how to use these videos in practice. So these are, again, just some, and of course there's other things that you can use, but we really want to direct people to the core curriculum and these district approved resources as the mainstay in the work when you're helping support the work of students after school or on the weekends.
So when you reach high school, I have shown here the trajectory. If a student does 8th grade math and they began in high school with Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, and then when they get completed and mastered Algebra 2, then they began to have different pathways. So from Algebra 2, they could go to pre-calculus, which is a prerequisite for either calculus or AP calculus if they take either of those as their 4th year math course. Pre-cal could be a 4th year math. Some other options are applied mathematical concepts, which has different things in it, such as financial math, linear programming. I won't go on with all the different varieties. They can take statistics. They also may go to bridge, or they may go to AP statistics. Statistics is not a requirement for the AP statistics. And back on that other slide, I will say if a student has entered or done Algebra 1 in 8th grade, then as a high school 9th grader, they begin the trajectory with geometry. Thank you, Chrissy. So in high school, each course has a number of major focuses, so it's impossible to list them all, but we've listed some of them. And you can read them from the screen. I do want to share and point out that all of our courses are standards aligned. And although I've only listed Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, because we'd have so many slides if we listed them all in high school, every course that we teach in high school has Tennessee state mandated standards that we teach every course in alignment with. I will share with you that Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, you will see some standards that are repeated in both. However, even though the standard itself is in both courses, the depth that it goes to is different, or their scope is different. So in Algebra 1, a standard about seeing structure may go to a certain depth, and in Algebra 2, we pick it up and it goes even deeper and applied to more functions and more real world applications that they didn't see in Algebra 1. So our core curriculum is our springboard Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. For those courses. When you get to the upper level math courses, they all happen to be Cengage texts, but they are written by different authors. So you will see multiple Cengage texts at the upper level math. We have district approved resources, Khan Academy, which has already been mentioned, which has the videos and the practice that you can get immediate feedback. Desmos is a tool that teachers use, but it is also a way that students can practice some of their math, or there are different activities that teachers create on it that you may see students doing also asynchronously for homework. And I will point out that our Springboard book or text has some Desmos activities that align with it and are actually embedded in our curriculum guides. Delta Math is an interactive skill practice which provides immediate feedback. And of course, we've already addressed IXL in middle school, but the high school is excited that we are just now starting a pilot with the IXL in high school. We did do training this Tuesday for all high school math teachers and all high school exceptional ed teachers that support the math, and already started getting emails the first day in school or back to this semester and yesterday about students being on IXL and embracing that as a support and a resource. So again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions around the high school.
And I think at this time, I know that I can't see the chat right now, but I know that we've probably had some questions in the chat. We'll just kind of open it up if anyone has any specific questions at this time. And if you have anything to think about, I'm going to go ahead and post. And again, this will be on the presentation that we send to Sylvia. We have our contact information on here as well. So if a specific question comes up around a resource and you're wondering if it's something that we use or something that we really approve of and it works in tandem with the standards and our curriculum guides, please feel free to reach out. Or if you just have a general question, we'll be happy to support you. I know Joey probably gets a lot of calls just trying to get folks set up. I think we're in a good place with that now in ClassLink, but just know that we are here to support you. We thank you so much for your partnership and supporting our students and ensuring that they have a solid wraparound services of support when it comes to academic and emotional needs. So thank you so much for that. And then any questions? And I'm going to stop sharing.
Christy, while we wait for questions, I just want to say thank you to the entire Hamilton County School team for providing us with all of this really great information. And as you mentioned, we will make sure that we follow up with all of the participants and provide them both the PowerPoint as well as all of the great resources that I think Jamie, Sheila, and others posted in the chat. And I think that there's a statement in the chat that just suggests that people are going to be reaching out to get some more information and ideas about tutoring. So I don't see any more questions, but again, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And once again, just for allowing us to come together to share this information so that we can better support our children and families in Hamilton County. Well, thank you all so much, and I hope that you have a wonderful Friday.